And we're in line 3. You turn man to destruction and say, return, O children of men. For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it is past, and like a watch in the night. You carry them away like a flood. They are like a sleep. In the morning they are like grass, which grows up. In the morning it flourishes and grows up. In the evening it is cut down and withers. And so let's go back to line 3 and start elaborating. It says, you turn man to destruction and say, return, O children of men. Now, God created man. And he created man for worship. And so since man had followed Satan and the serpent and all of that during that temptation and the fall of Adam and Eve, from the Garden of Eden, all right, and so God created man, and God can destroy man. But it seems like man can't grasp that concept that God can destroy. Well, the Creator can destroy the creation. And sometimes the creation destroys itself. But the creation can never destroy the Creator. Glory to God. And so he's telling the people, he's telling us, you turn man to destruction and say, return, O children of men. Because sometimes God can use that chastisement and those consequences to bring us down, to humble us. What? For us to return to him. To return to him. And so then he goes on to say in line 4, he says, for 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it is past, and like a watch in the night. That's what a thousand years is a long time. And so if it sends us to Peter chapter 3, 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 8, that says, but beloved, do not forget this one thing right here, that with the Lord 1 day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as 1 day. Are you serious? So you're saying that 1,000 years is as 1 day to God. And so I went ahead and, being that I'm a numbers person, I said, well, let me see what all of this means. And so, okay, so Peter's saying this, Moses said that 1,000 years is as a day. Well, Moses said 1,000 years like yesterday, when it's past. Peter says like 1,000 years is as a day to God. All right, so if 1,000 years is a day, then 1,000 years is 24 hours. So, and if we divide that by 2, and that becomes what? 500 years. So that means that 500 years is as 12 hours. And we cut that in half. So 250 years is as 6 hours. We cut that in half. Then 125 years is like 3 hours. We cut that in half. 62.5 years is like 1.5 hours. We cut that in half. We have 31 and 25 hundredths of a year, or 31 and 1/4 of a year is like 75 hundredths, or 3/4 of an hour. So if you're 31 years old, you only live 3/4 of an hour to God. And if you're 62.5 years old, in God's eyesight, you're only an hour and a half. And God bless us to live to be 125 years old. That's only 3 hours. So My question is, how old are you according to God right now? Anyways, I thought that was interesting that you could live in this world for 31 years and it just like to God you only live 3/4 of an hour. That's really isn't nothing. And that's why it's so important to know that God's time and our time are two different times. God works outside of time. He doesn't work by a watch or a clock. He doesn't. He was see what Moses just said, even from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. And Moses used a time limit or time frame about putting some years on something to let us know how big of a difference the time span for us and God, how it's so different. 1,000 years is just like a day. And so, and if you go and you know, you hear these scientists and evolutionists and stuff like that, they're saying that this earth been around for billions of years. Well, if you go with God's time schedule and you multiply, and then you go with the, how many years they said that that creationists say that the earth been in existence. You know, I didn't look that up, but I'm just saying, just say if it is, we know Jesus, you know, was gone like 2,000 years ago, more than a little over 2,000 years. All right. And then if we have, and before Jesus, that probably was a span of what, you know, since creation, maybe 4,000, 5,000 years. So, I mean, if you're looking at it as 7,000 years that this world been in existence, and then you multiply 7,000 years times 365 days, and then you multiply that by, you know, I mean, you just keep going on. I mean, sure, we will get to 1 billion years if we go on God's time schedule. You know, so maybe so. I don't know. I may face some flack for that, and I'm going to face some flack for being over my time anyway. So we'll pick it up. Just meet me back in the next segment because I don't know where I am right now.